Then I get up to the front of the whole group, and my husband has his arm around me, and all of a sudden I just burst out. I am just so mad at God, and all the tears just flowed.
Welcome to Matters of Soul Importance, where we dive deeply into topics of both earthly and eternal consequence. I'm Roxanne Solonen, faith columnist and features writer for the Forum, author, and speaker. My guest today, Shawn Hagstrom, is not just a guest, but a friend, with whom I have enjoyed covering the miles together around the parks of Fargo, where we enjoy encountering nature. Everything from fat, rascally raccoons and gentle deer to tree trunks and flower buds. Today, we're going to go a little deep and ask the serious and heartfelt question, where is God in the cross of infertility? That is a question Shawn and her husband Mike faced in the earlier years of their 42-year marriage, and it's one that has brought them on an adventure that they could never have imagined that day they both said, "I do." Shawn grew up in a large Catholic family and never imagined that she'd face infertility when it was her turn to marry and start a family. That devastating journey could have broken their marriage, but instead the Hagstroms dove deeper into their faith and learned a few things about God, themselves, and the value of life along the way. Shawn is not only a thoughtful person, but someone who knows my heart well, and I like to think I have a pretty good grasp of hers too. She was one of my earliest encouragers of this podcast, for which I am deeply grateful. I've known for a while that Shawn, along with being a tried and true podcast listening friend, has some very precious insights that could help bring hope to others as well. Insights that would be, as it were, fitting for a podcast. And the day has finally come. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time, so I don't want to delay it any longer. Let's meet Shawn. Well, welcome, Shawn. The day has finally come. We've been talking about this for so long. I appreciate so much your willingness to come into the Forum studio today and share your story. We're going to ask the question, where is God in the cross of infertility? But before we go there, I want to find out about Shawn. I know that I know some things. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. So share with our listeners who you are. Like, where did you grow up? And what was the faith like in that experience, and whatever else you feel like needs to be shared to set the stage.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. And I've lived in Fargo for so many years, and I've never been in this beautiful Forum building in such a part of the city. And so thank you so much. I grew up in a small farming community. Our closest city was not the Twin Cities. It was Winnipeg. And right up by the Canadian border, a rich farming community. I am the second of 7 children, and I really enjoyed living in the chaos of this big family. We had a small house, 1 bathroom, 3 bedrooms, but somehow we all fit. It was great. It was wonderful. My mom and dad were very different in their upbringing. Dad was almost an only child. He had one sister that was 12 years older than he was, and his father was an engineer for the Soo Line Railroad, and during the Depression, that was a very dependable job. The trains kept running, so they were really comfortable off during those times of poverty for many, and he was really the apple of his parents' eyes. And although he was baptized, though, they never really had a church. They were struggling with faith, and so he never grew up with a faith life. My mom, on the other hand, grew up in a very, very poor and very broken family. There were 6 of them, and she was number 4. The brothers would work really hard to make money for the family to keep them fed and kept their farm, and my grandma would always make sure they had plenty to eat. And she had a really strong Catholic faith. They were not always able to get to church because of their poverty and living in the country. But if they were in town, my mom said, Grandma would say, make sure you stop at the church and say hello to Jesus. And so we would. They always would.
It strikes me, Shawn, not to interrupt your thoughts here, but we take it so much for granted, especially where we're here in Fargo. I mean, it is right as we're recording this, we're getting ready. We are in Holy Week, and there's just so many options, and like there's no excuses. But it's not like that for a lot of people, not only in America, in rural America, but throughout the world. When I hear of what it takes, so just a comment of the things that we take for granted sometimes, and it's good to hear the stories of like how hard it can be to live that life fully in abundance when you don't have that access. So anyway, yeah.
Yes, it was. And yet why? Why was her faith so strong? And not only that, how does she, in this brokenness, give it to all her children? It was really a huge gift. My mom and dad fell in love when she was working at a music store. My dad was a ham radio operator, and he loved electronics. And this music store would have tubes. And this is like, you can tell, a long time ago, they'd have tubes for his radios. So he'd go in and buy them, and he met her, and they fell in love there. And they got married, and they started this family out. It was I just remember my dad was really my hero, and I would just lay by his radio room door listening to him, W0 PhD, Papa Hotel, Delta calling CQ, and I would just fall asleep with that music. And I just loved him so much. But, I just really was sad that he didn't come to church with us.
Mm-hmm.
He did have a conversion experience, but it wasn't until I was already college students, so I never really saw that. But I longed for that for my own family one day. Have someone whose faith is really important to them. For my husband, that was really my goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had many years, most of our years, where my dad wasn't coming to church, despite his strong faith that he started his life with. But at some point, he went off that path, and so yeah, our mom became the spiritual guide, which isn't ideal. There's studies that are out there that the father has a profound impact on the faith of the children. There's just something about that natural leadership role. So I share in that missing piece, and my dad did come back too much later. But so yeah, we need our strong fathers, and we yearn for that. And as women, I think on some level, we do want to be guided. We want that fatherly help along the way. We're made to be guided and cherished that way. So,
yeah, we sure are. And God just put that deep longing in us.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be united in faith.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say the next step is maybe I'll see, but you met your husband at some point. So I want to hear that story.
Yeah. I did meet my husband. And, after dating other guys, it just was so different. We our first official date, we went through a walk in the woods, and it was just so beautiful. It was a fall day in Detroit Lakes, and we just talked, and he felt like family. He felt like home, and that was so different than other dating relationships I had. So,
how did you meet?
Well, my mom. He was a youth minister in Detroit Lakes, and my sister and brother-in-law lived there and had a baby. And they had to go through baptism prep, and he prepared them for baptism because he was a youth minister at the time. And my mom knew him because she did youth ministry work, volunteer in her parish. They would have meetings in the diocese, so she knew him. So he was invited to my goddaughter's baptism, and my mom said, Shawn, I think there's somebody you should meet. And that's how we first met. My mom actually introduced us. So
how old were you?
I was probably 22 when we first met.
So you were both through college?
We were both through college.
Okay.
Yes, we were both at our.
It's all about the timing.
It's all about the timing, and and God was there. I mean, he was. Mike was really different, and his faith was very important to him. And I recognized that right away. And, it didn't take long before we really started dating seriously. And it got to the point where it was like, I did not want to say goodnight. And the only thing that kept me going was that every morning we would meet at morning mass. And so I would know that as soon as I woke up, I could go to daily mass and see him.
Beautiful. I did not want to say goodnight, you know. We kind of miss a little bit of that in this time where we're kind of rushing the cart and before the, apple cart or whatever there is something beautiful about that yearning and waiting and, dreaming and, just being patient. We're a society that wants everything right now. So,
yeah.
And yet that yearning was there. I didn't want to say goodbye. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it was certainly God. God was there in our relationship. I could feel that right away.
And you both were in the education field, right? Or was Mike?
Mike was the youth minister at that time.
Okay.
And I was working in early intervention. Actually, this was a birth to 3-year-olds. That was my first job with children who had developmental delays. So that's what brought me to Detroit Lakes. But pretty soon, it was a night. Mike had been gone all day on a ski trip with this youth group, because that's what youth ministers do, take him.
Yeah.
And he came home. We were sitting in my apartment. We were just talking, and it wasn't planned out, but it just as we were talking, it just really realized that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together. And Mike goes, "Just a second." And he ran home. And he brought back this bowl made by a potter in Collegeville, St. John's.
Okay.
And it was a marriage bowl. It was made of 2 different pieces of clay formed together.
Oh.
And he said, "I bought a bunch of these for wedding gifts for my friends, but I saved the most beautiful one for you."
Oh. He's so thoughtful. He is just such a thoughtful guy. Yeah.
He didn't know who I was yet, but he was sharing it, saving it for me so that day would come. And so that was our, not the ring right away, like most people had. I had a bowl, a pottery bowl.
Wow.
So anyway, we became engaged.
And you've been filling bowls ever since when he's hungry.
Yes. And so it was very beautiful and touching. And then I remember it was winter and getting in that little Volkswagen and going down to tell his parents in Morris. And on the way back, it was so stormy. And we had to go so slow. And we talked and we talked and we talked about our dreams. And one of them was children. And I said, I studied about St. Therese de Lisieux when I was in college, and I just really thought I would love to have a daughter named Therese. Because St. Therese loved, I felt that her part in the church is to love, be the heart of the church. And I really wanted that for her. And I just remember that trip, and I remember that conversation in pure joy. And everything was perfect. Everything was perfect. Part of, and I think this is still the case, I'm pretty sure, is a part of marriage prep is to take an NFP, Natural Family Planning class. And so Mike and I did, and I learned how to chart my fertility, and it was very interesting, but I quickly noticed that my cycles were really strange. And so, I had gone to the doctor, and he said, "Well, you're engaged, you're getting married, stress can really do that to you." And I said, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, what else could it be?" And
before you go on, I know a lot of people probably won't even know, and without going into graphic detail, what is NFP, and just give a little bit of like what it does. Because one of the things as you're talking, and that strikes me because it's been part of my experience too, is that it tells us something about our bodies that we might not otherwise know if we just with other methods of child spacing or whatever. And so it can be very helpful, even though not always good news at the end of that. But share a little bit about natural family planning.
It was really interesting because all these things are going on in my body before, but I never even thought about it until I was taught and thinking, and it was so clear once you had the class. There's different methods. Someone's the temperature method. We weren't using that. We were just charting its kind of mucus quality, and it was very clear when you were ovulating and when you weren't. And then you would chart it, and they would show you what would be safe time for, if you wanted to avoid conception, and what would be an ideal time if you wanted conception in your charting. And it was. I mean, it made a lot of sense. And it's just like, wow, why doesn't everybody know about this? This is just like...
I remember when I was blown away by that as I got more into charting and learning about my body. And I thought, well, it's free. That's part of it.
It's free and healthy.
Yeah. Other things, it costs money, and you make lots of money off of artificial contraception. I mean, you just do. And there's no money to be made. And so therefore there's not marketing campaigns and, you have to, having a deep faith and giving all this along with the other parts of your life to God is a scary thing, especially in our world, especially in America. It seems like we're such, isolationists and sort of like we want all these freedoms. So anyway, there's so much depth there, but I just wanted to pause a little bit to share a little bit. So like the temperature part would be, like it's indicating different things within you that are showing ovulation.
Right.
And there's indicators through those signs. So
it wasn't that hard. It's not that hard to learn. You have a coach that you work with until you get it down. So
what were some of the signs, Shawn, that just to give people like who maybe are going through something like this, what were some of the signs that you later went, oh, yeah, that was something I've been experiencing for a long time? Do you remember?
The signs of fertility? Or
the signs of that something wasn't quite right.
Well, the cycles are just crazy.
Okay. Back
when I was engaged, I was having periods every couple of weeks. And I mean, that was just crazy. It's just... and then they became really spaced.
Okay.
And just to know, I mean, there's so many reasons for infertility, and I can only speak to my own. And I was actually going through early menopause.
Okay.
At age 24 as a newlywed.
Wow.
I was going, and I think I look back, I remember having these hot flashes, and I think, man, this almost seems like menopause, but not even thinking that was even a possibility. Of course it wasn't a possibility. And so I was seeing what other women would see probably in their 50s. You start seeing the signs but I was just very, very early.
What was it like when you found that out? Like at some point, I'm assuming it was diagnosed, right?
Yes, it was. Yes, I mean, first of all, we... At one point, the charting was looking like, oh, this is a good time to try. And we did, and I didn't have a period, so I thought, well, I'll take a pregnancy test, and it came back positive.
Oh.
Which was, that was very happy. So we were just celebrating and making plans, and then I went to the doctor, and he says, no.
Oh.
You're not.
Oh, wow. Because that pregnancy hormone... If it showed up, that's mysterious.
I suppose you can just have a faulty test.
Right.
And I had a faulty test, and so yes, and even if you are fertile, even, I don't know if I really was that time or not. They don't all take either. So, so I was devastated.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, because that's kind of like the pivotal thing that's going to launch us into the next part of the story. But whatever you're willing to share, I know it's super personal. Like what we're sharing is so personal, but there's other women out there, other couples like going through this, and they had these dreams and these plans, and then this moment where everything was limited, and it's a suffering.
It is. It was a terrible suffering. They did. How we really diagnosed it was I had a biopsy of my ovaries, and they said, well, you don't have viable eggs. And that's what he says. You've gone through premature menopause. It's very rare, but it happens. And
what was the state of your soul and your thinking about in terms of God? Because you had a pretty strong faith. You were still very young, but
I had a very strong faith. I was just like, I was ticked. I was so angry. And just very sad too. And I mean, I married this man thinking he was thinking I could have his children. I was dreaming of both of ours. Would he have married me? Would he have married me if he would have known? I couldn't believe he would. And I just remember looking at pictures of myself as this, we had the pictures of Mike and I when we were toddlers and hanging up that our moms gave us. And I mean, she's adorable. I had, curly blonde hair and those baby cheeks and those eyes, and I was adorable. But that day, all I could see was, you are defective. You are broken. And I just remember just being so devastated. I would just I'd be doing okay, then all of a sudden I would just burst into tears and cry and just couldn't figure any of this out.
I'm curious too, Shawn. I know you have a really strong marriage now, but was that a threat to that, or how did Mike move through that with you?
Mike seemed really indifferent to it all. I mean, he's like, well, this is what's coming up, and that's kind of who he was. And I mean, I did not see that at that time. Mm-hmm. I just thought that he must be rejecting me. Mm-hmm. That he would not have married me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But he was just kind of just there, just letting me cry. And
isn't that most of our feelings of inadequacy? In that we feel like if people really knew me,
yeah,
they might not be drawn toward me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was an awful big hole in a marriage.
And coming from a big family.
And I never even looked. My dad, like I said, my dad came from a very small family, and he had 2 aunts that had no children. So it was definitely something that was hereditary.
Okay.
But would I've even, that wasn't even a possibility in my mind, getting married. Of course we'd have kids.
So how did you... And how long did it take to reconcile with God? I know there's a lot more to the story, but was that did that take a while?
It took a while. But I just remember this one time just being so angry and saying, God, I don't even know if I believe in you. Mm-hmm. And then hearing the reply just very clear. Well, then who are you talking to? And I mean, it's just like, yeah, who am I talking to? And I knew at that point that it didn't matter. He's my God. He'd always be my God. Did I like what he was doing? No. Did I like him? No. I was very angry. But he was my God, and I knew he was.
And he knew the whole time and loved you the whole time.
He knew when I was a defective little toddler. He knew all about me, and he had a plan.
But you weren't defective. You were just going to go on a different kind of a journey than you were expecting.
I didn't go on a very different journey. The healing part came when we were asked, Mike and I were involved in Teens Encounter Christ. It's a retreat movement where get away for 3 days. And so we were asked to be on the leadership table, and we said yes. But I was, at that point, I was just really sunk in that bitterness, and which I tried to really shove away so people didn't know. And there was lots of time for group sharing. First it was at the table, you did small group sharing, and then you went up in front of the huge group and did sharing in front of everybody. And there's talks about times in your life where there's death. And, okay, so I shared something that was pretty non-emotional at the small table. And then I get up to in front of the whole group, and my husband has his arm around me, and all of a sudden I just burst out. I am just so mad at God, and all the tears just flowed, and there was, it's like the scales were just dropped from my eyes. I could see. I could just see. And there was my husband standing by me. He never stopped loving me.
Wow. You had to be in you had to know that you were in a safe place to do that.
I don't know why I did, because it wasn't. Why didn't I do it at my small table? I don't know.
Where it was safer. Yeah,
I know. I don't know, but it was. I didn't share any of it at the small table in front of this huge group.
They're probably like, "What? She didn't say anything about that."
It was really something. And I mean, I just burst into tears, but I really felt that weight off my shoulder. I just needed to say that out loud. I really needed to say that out loud. And the real miracle happened the next day. And let me see if I can find it. When part of my job was to part of my job was to give a reflection on the resurrection of Jesus, and it was the story of Matthew. And these women come down, and they said, "I know you're looking for Jesus." but he's not here. He went ahead of you to Galilee. Like, it's just all just like, okay, God, I hear what you're saying. You're not hanging out in the depth of my womb where there's death. You're not. You're in Galilee. You're looking ahead. You're walking ahead. You're making plans. And it just was like, and I was healed.
Wow, that's such a freedom to realize, like, this is not the end. This isn't a dead end right now.
No, God, Jesus doesn't hang out in death.
And he already knew, and he heard you voice that. So he's like, all right, let's go now. We got through that part. Come on. Are you coming with me?
Because I'm your God.
Yeah.
And he was my God, and he went ahead of me. And Mike and I just really we went to our first adoption inquiry class and heard what we already knew, that it would be forever. So don't plan on getting a baby quickly. And so we said, we're just going to enjoy this time. We're going to be like empty nesters before anybody else.
Your menopause, you might as well be an empty nester.
No, that's right. We might as well. And so we really enjoyed that time until, Mike loves to quote John Paul II,
mm-hmm.
in Providence, there's no coincidences.
Mm-hmm.
And these no coincidences really came back many times. Mike and I were at the Fargo Theater, and we were walking home. We went to the movie called Imagine about John Lennon. And he goes, this just reminded me of my friend John from college, and I just haven't heard from him for such a long time. I should just reconnect. And he did. He reconnected with them, and they started talking. And we went down to the cities, and we stopped in to visit him. He had just had a baby boy. He was born on December 22nd, which happens to be the same date of my birthday of my girl. No coincidences. Mm. And there he was, and he was talking about his life and how great it was to be a parent, and was asking our plans. And we said, well, we told him about the adoption, and we're just kind of waiting now, and it's going to be a while. And he goes, and so then we had a great time, and we left. And a few weeks later, Mike gets a letter or a text. It wasn't text. It was a letter or a phone call. I think it's probably a letter from John, who said that his nanny was pregnant, and she really was looking at the possibility of adoption, but she was really looking for something different. Would we be willing to talk with her? And so we started writing. This was not the days of texting and phones, cell phones. This was the day of letters. So we started writing letters back and forth. And she asked us to read the book called Dear Birth Mother. Adoption was just changing at this time. Right before this, all adoptions are very secretive. Mm-hmm. The birth mother would give the baby to the adoption agency, and the adoption agency would place that child with whoever probably was next on the list. I'm not sure exactly how it worked, but
what year was this about?
That was in 1989.
Okay.
This book was written at the beginning of the 80s, so this was just the beginning. This was not talked about at all at our adoption inquiry classes. This is something brand new at this time about mothers actually choosing the family and having communication with the family and meeting the family. And that's what Joyce wanted, and asked if we'd be comfortable. And it was kind of scary at first. So we said, can you really let go? And she goes, yeah, you would be the parents. And we said, yes. And it was beautiful. We hadn't had our home study done yet. And so there was a social worker intern working with our agency, and so she came in. She was doing our home study kind of quickly, and on December 22nd, a year after John's son was born, we had our house decorated for Christmas and stockings up, and in walks our social worker for our last home visit before we were approved.
Okay.
And right as she walks out the door, she goes, the baby was born.
Oh, my God. Wow.
And I said, well, is it a boy or a girl? She goes, well, I don't know. But all we could think of, we had been playing the Messiah all Advent, and unto us a child is born.
Yeah.
Unto us a child is born. So it was beautiful. And we got a couple weeks later, we got a picture of this little girl dressed in a Christmas outfit, and she had these longest fingers and these little dark brown eyes. She was so beautiful, dark brown hair. She was just a beautiful little girl. And back, I think, I don't know, every law is different, but in Minnesota where she was, you need to wait 6 weeks from the birth to make the final decision and to sign the papers. So Therese at that time did go to foster home, and they did visit her during that time, but they both made the decision, yes, this is what they wanted to do. And so she signed the paper, but Joyce did not want it to be a social worker handoff. And so she planned this beautiful ceremony. It was so gorgeous that it was very prayerful. And both of our moms were there, and the birth family's parents were there, and the foster mom was there, and the couple that got us together, the one that introduced us to their nanny, were there. Wow. And it was just beautiful. And we were asked to come up with a reading. And there was a book on St. Therese of Lisieux, and right on the back was this story. It says, when Therese told her father that she wanted to enter the convent before Christmas, he was sitting in the garden on a Sunday afternoon in May. In a weakened state, facing the loss of his youngest, the 63-year-old did a very tender thing. Going up to a low wall, he pointed to some white flowers, and plucking one of them, he gave it to Therese, explaining the care which God brought it into being. It was preserved to that very day. And while she listened, she believed that she was hearing her own story. In gathering it, her papa had pulled all its roots out without breaking them. For Therese, the flowers seemed a symbol of herself, destined to grow on in another soil.
So this is her because she died at 24. So this was at that point?
This is when she was entering the convent, and he had already lost all his other daughters to the convent. She was the youngest, and she too was going, and his wife had died.
Yes.
And she told him this sad news, and so here was this flower, and it was pulled up, and the roots were there. The roots were there. It just needed another soil to grow on. That day, and I think that is so much like adoption. Mm-hmm. The whole story of our adoption, that the child has the roots from their birth family. That's the only place they got those roots from, is their birth family. And we were the other soil. But that flower was pulled out, and there was a real emptiness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The birth mom, after she helped put this beautiful, beautiful child in my hands, she had to leave. I remember her mom saying, well, we're going to go to 5 o'clock Mass because your brother's serving, and just thinking, we're going back to a new life. And she's supposed to go back to the way things always have been. And it can't be that way. Mm-hmm. When she left that day, her life was forever changed too. Yeah. There's a hole there. And she did give her those strong roots. And we did not. I just remember not long after we got Therese, we were at church, and someone came up to us and said, oh, her parents must be beautiful because she's such a pretty baby. And I wanted to say, yeah, well, thank you very much. But, the thing is that there really isn't very good vocabulary.
Right.
Because the people who gave her that beauty are her parents. They truly are her parents. The person who gives her the home truly are her parents. And even my kids will say, like, my mom or my dad, and talking about their birth family, and yet who do they call their mom and their dad? It's just a kind of a realization that, you can use these other words, birth family, biological family, adoptive family. But in reality, what we are all parents, and that doesn't change.
Yeah. I think I told you this story, Shawn, but I'm going to repeat it. It's a little wound in my own life. So I have an aunt that was adopted, and she's very different than the rest of the Beauclair, or the Burns. I'm sorry, that's my mom's side. We're very emotional and, whatever you know of me. And she's very intellectual, and even she speaks longer, and, she just has this way about her. She's just very intelligent and also much taller than the rest of us. So I just love her. But when I started learning about that she was adopted, and that was a new concept for me, and I can't remember exactly how old I was. I would say maybe 8 or 7, and my grandma had come to visit, and I had just learned about Anne's adoption. My mom was very honest and, just mentioned it. I probably had questions, because that's usually how I found out about things, because I was curious. And so I asked my grandma, I said, well, who are Anne's real parents? That did not go over well. Keep in mind that was at a time, and I'm sure I struck a nerve, and I had no idea, but it did not go over well. I felt terrible, and I didn't understand what I had done. It makes me emotional right now thinking of it, because I didn't mean to hurt her. But I didn't, like you're saying, I didn't know any words. I didn't know. I just knew that she came from somewhere else and now was a beautiful gift in our family, but I was just curious,
And it is. At first I really felt I really needed to hang on tight to that, only me as a mom. But I don't know. It's just as growing and watching and knowing Theresa's birth mom, it's like she's her mom too. She's her mom too.
There's so much there, I think, about letting go, and this thing that we all have to do, and the sorrows that we carry, and how we have to keep. I've said life is about letting go and letting go and letting go. And it strikes me that what you said about it's such a generous thing to say, what you're saying right now. And I know that not every adoptive parent probably is there, It comes through maturity, and the only way I can say it, because I don't know of your experience personally, is that I've gone through similar letting goes and understandings of who I am in relationship with God through my faith walk. So we all have to make those discoveries, and there's such a freedom. I can tell that you speak with such a freedom in that you have to know who you are and who you are in relationship to God to be able to say what you said. So it says a lot about you, but also, of course, it wasn't instant, because it's confusing, right?
I just remember at first it was like, I have this beautiful baby, but I don't really. Why do I have her? What? And it's and I just remember when she was probably about 6 months old. Mike was at school and far away, and I was home alone with her, and she got really sick. She was running a high temp, and I was holding her on my chest, and I was calling the nurse line. They said, we can make it till morning, go right away into immediate care, and if you can make it that long. And it was so scary. And we made it, laying on my chest, we made it till morning. We got right away at 8 o'clock and found out she had pneumonia. And she was very ill, and they were talking about putting her in the hospital, but she was just flipped, and she got better. And it was at that day, it was like, I am the mom now. And it's all about being a parent, and I'm sure it's the same as with you. It's going through the hard stuff.
Well, sacrificial love. You're bonded now, yes. And there's something there that has happened and transpired, and that is God. That is He. We were made for that, and He is teaching us that continually, throughout our lives. That's why we're here. I want to come back to all this and go deeper even yet into what happened next, and also how God began to speak to you and guide you through this. And I know it wasn't always perfect, and there, every parenting journey, there's messiness there. But again, to see how God. Well, where is God in the cross of infertility, which we're speaking about and answering. So we'll be right back with more Matters of Soul Importance with Shawn Hagstrom, speaking of infertility and how God intersects with our sorrows. We'll be right back.
Local news affects your life. It gives you the confidence and clarity to make better decisions every day. You can support that with a digital subscription. Visit inforum.com/subscribe to take advantage of our introductory offer, just $6 for 6 months.
Welcome back to Matters of Soul Importance. We have Shawn Hagstrom here sharing a very tender and beautiful story about how she learned of her infertility and how she navigated those waters, and ultimately how God touched her and Mike with the beautiful gift of children in a different way that they were expecting. But it is their story. It is the only story they have, and it's an absolutely beautiful story, and I think it's worth sharing about. So you have this beautiful baby girl.
She's beautiful. Yes.
Yeah. And then at some point, you get another baby. Now, how did that all happen?
Well, as soon as we finalized Therese's adoption, we were put back on the adoption list. And we waited, and we waited, and Therese grew older and older. We thought, And then we were kind of wondering when this next adoption was going to happen. And I just remember I was just sitting on the couch, just relaxing. Therese was 8 years old, and she was just at this age where I didn't have to be watching every minute. She could be playing at the neighbor's house, and I was thinking, this is really nice. And we get this phone call that says, we're ready to do your home study.
That is the one thing about adoption is like there's less obviously control, and you're so powerless in this waiting time. You know, I remember one year I have a friend that's adopted 5 kids, and they had their first 2, and I was in this faith sharing group, and so we got to know her story, her beautiful story too, and her kids. And I was actually, I believe, pregnant with my 3rd, but I don't know if I knew about it yet. I can't remember exactly the timeline, but we were sitting in our group at Nativity Church in the fireside room. And all of a sudden, she walks in the door with a new baby. And we're like, what? And everything just came to a standstill. And we didn't care about our Bible study anymore. We were just like surrounding her. And we're like, it was the most joyful thing. But I'm sure for her, it was like no prep. Like all of a sudden, it drops from the sky.
It does. And it was just I said, well, yeah, we still want to do this. We do. But just kind of realizing this is baby stuff again. We're starting over with that.
It's such a different process than going through a pregnancy, you know, because it's like that's kind of within and this is kind of without, and there's all these other people involved. And it would be such a shock because it's like involving something so tender and internal for your family. And yet, it comes through a phone call, not through a pregnancy test.
Not through a pregnancy test. And this was actually just a home study.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, before
So you have to go through all of that again to
we had to go through that all again. It was very interesting. You know, the first time around, it was like they asked questions like, what would you do if your child wants to sleep in your bed? And I said, well, they would just go back to their own bed, you know? Yeah. That was the first time around. The second time around, it was like, and I believed it too. Well, it kind of depends on what's going on in their life. And, you know.
That would be so hard, though, Shawn, to be under scrutiny like that. Like, you're literally waiting to see if you're qualified for this thing that no one has to go through that if it's natural.
Well, I remember I went to a brand new doctor that I'd never been before. She had never seen me before. I had to switch doctors and to have a test done and to make sure that I wasn't able just to get pregnant on my own. I wasn't just faking this. And and they even asked the doctor, they said, do you think she'll be a good parent? And this person doesn't know me at all.
Yeah. Oh,
everybody had to give their input on that. But it was. I mean, definitely it was. You were watched carefully, which is good in the sense is, you really want these children to be safe.
Right. And one of the things that I've talked about in other areas is, and you've alluded to it, Shawn, that children who are being put up for adoption, whatever the wording is, have already gone through a wound. I mean, even if they don't know it, there is that wound there. And I know you and I have talked about that, and it is the truth. Like they've been removed from those roots are, there, but it's not that first soil. And so you want to make that, my point is you want it to be the best experience it can be so that can heal and that those new roots will grow into this new soil, right? So it makes sense, but it still would be hard.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. I remember a person saying, "Oh, you're just so lucky," and I'm thinking, "Well, you're very lucky. You just had 4 kids just like that."
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing about luck. It's our God's plan in our life, and But yeah, so we went through the home study and we got our name on the list, and we sent pictures of our family and
checked all the boxes.
Checked all the boxes, and at this point they were just starting to do going right from the hospital to the adoptive family's home, and you'd become foster parents for a while before parental rights were terminated.
Okay.
And I just remember it was. I would have said yes for sure with Therese, but now we have Therese who's adopted. And how can you take a baby in your home and say, this is forever, and have that child be taken back, which does happen.
Right.
So
you got to guard your heart there. It's like a little bit, yeah.
Well, we just said we couldn't do that because of her. I mean, that wouldn't be fair to her.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, things.
Again, she's already had that primordial loss, and so then you're so sensitive to anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we said no to that, but we were very surprised. It was right after Therese's first communion, second grade first communion, and this little boy was born on Easter Sunday.
Wow.
With a lot of hair. lot of hair. And we were chosen to be the parents. Now, this wasn't an open adoption. This was a closed adoption, which actually was very rare at that time, 8 years later, because open adoptions were coming out. But we were very excited when we were able to go to Bismarck and pick up that little guy. And he was, and when we saw his head of hair at that time, it was just pure red. Pure red hair sticking up everywhere.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know he had red hair.
He did when he was a baby. And and my mom, Grandma Huggle, the one who prayed, my mom's mom, faith was so important. She was a prayer for everyone. She goes, I'm just praying that they get a boy this time, and he has red hair like his dad. And my mom's saying, you have to stop being so picky.
Well,
they waited
apparently
so long.
The prayers of a righteous man availeth much.
My goodness, her prayers were right on, and it was.
Wow.
And he was so different than Therese. I mean, when we got Therese, she was wide eyes. She was always looking around at everything. She would not shut her eyes when we picked her up and to put her to bed. And Joseph was just the opposite. He kept pretending he was sleeping.
I'm going to shut down. The world's too noisy.
I've just been living with these people for this long, and I've been taken away from another group of people, and and but when he finally did open his eyes and he saw his sister Therese, he gave her the biggest smile ever.
Oh, so cute how kids know each other. They know that there's something different about those little ones. Yeah.
And I never ever met his birth mom. To this day, I have not met her, but I can see her in him. He just has such a big heart. It means so much to me. He loves sports. She loves sports. He had this crooked smile that nobody else in our family, of course, had, and he has this heart-shaped face. And nobody else had, so he got it from her or his birth father. We did not give him those roots. He was transplanted in our soil. We gave him the soil to grow, and we will always be his mom and dad because of that, and they will always be their parents because of that too. But the roots that they gave, it's the same with Therese and her roots. She was an artist. And I remember the outfits she could put together so well. And when she was just this little girl, she was probably 1 year old. And we went to a friend's house, and she had this big bucket of beautiful hair bows and clips. And Therese was in heaven because I don't have that stuff. That's not who I am at all. And so, that was her roots. And then she was able to really, even in the soil that we gave her, she was really able to become the person she was meant to be.
Though, I'm thinking of my son Adam when he won a math award his senior year and was called up in the middle of everyone to have this math award, which apparently they had a really hard time because there was a lot of kids in that class that were good in math. I'm like, I don't know where, like, this makes no sense. I run from math as much as I can. So I guess, no matter how these children are formed, they're all going to be so unique,
And made for a purpose.
Yes.
And made for a purpose.
Yeah.
But yes, it was, it was a very different adoption than Theresa's, but it's a very beautiful adoption. Mm-hmm. They're very different, and both options are really available to birth moms.
Yeah, depending on their situation, which everything's so unique, and for whatever reason, there was a guardedness there, and what the name Joseph? Like, we know about Therese and Therese. How about Joseph?
We really, after he was born, and we were waiting for him, and we prayed. We prayed the litany of St. Joseph until he arrived. Who else could he be?
Right. Yes.
Who else could he be? And he's, Joseph the worker. And that's who my son is. He's Joseph the worker.
Mm-hmm. And he has a peaceful countenance too, I think, doesn't he? I mean, you always see St. Joseph with Jesus and just this strength in him. And
I mean, he's just, that's who we had to have. We had to have St. Joseph to be his. So,
I do want to briefly jump ahead in terms of you are now grandparents too.
I am grandparents.
And we haven't even talked about, but you're a retired preschool teacher. And I have just enjoyed hearing about your sweet boys, the little grandsons. And you're such a good, you're just like the epitome of a preschool teacher. And so a good grandma. Tell me about the gift of them.
Oh, they just came. Yeah, my daughter Therese was pregnant, and I remember I was walking home from work, and she was coming from the clinic, and she pulled over. She goes, "Mom, get in the car." And she showed me the ultrasound, and there were baby A and baby B. Wow. We had waited so long for our two children, and here, right in front of me, were these two children. These two beautiful children.
She's going to catch up to you in one fell swoop.
Yeah, she did. And those boys are such a blessing. And we've always been, like grandma and grandpa to them, not adoptive grandpa. We're not. We're just grandma and grandpa to them. And
sure.
And we're not biologically related to them at all. But it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. They are 100% our grandkids. They just are, and they've been such a joy. And you think about the choice that my daughter's birth mom made. Mm-hmm. If she wouldn't, these boys would not even be in existence. Because they're her children, and that's just huge. And their children would not exist, and their children would not exist. It's just forever on.
Yes.
And what a huge, huge gift she gave to the world.
One time I had this epiphany about thinking about a family tree, right? Those branches and stuff, and thinking if one branch had been cut off of my family, like I wouldn't be here, my mom wouldn't be, or my dad or whatever. I mean, we just wouldn't exist. And here we are because that branch wasn't cut off.
Because that branch wasn't cut off, yeah. It's huge. And it's not even just, they wouldn't have a soul. They wouldn't be in heaven. They wouldn't be,
I know there's a story that you wanted to share about an NPR story, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, it was, I was a runner for many years, and on Therese's birthday, it was a beautiful, crispy day, and we're just running down the streets. I can't even remember where it happened. NPR was having a story about Christmas carols and putting silly words on them, and it was pretty light until it came to the last song, and it was this birth mom singing about this child within her, and she could have been my daughter's birth mom. They were saying the same words. She wanted so much more for this child than that she could give her, because she loved her so much. Unlike my daughter's birth mom, this woman chose abortion.
Was this a real story, or
I don't know. I don't know, but it was. I'm sure those words came from somebody's heart, and they really felt like they were doing the right thing. Except at home, I left this little girl toddling around the Christmas tree. She was an early walker, and going up to the door and pointing to Christmas cards, says, Anta, Anta, Anta. My little cat lover. And she was just so full of life. And her birth mom was able to watch her grow through letters and pictures that first year and telephone calls. And she was alive. And she was able to grow up and use her gifts and give birth and be a wonderful mother to these two little boys.
If only we could see right into the future, have a glass ball, but we can't. But I wish we could give that to those who are in situations where they just feel like no, and the whole culture is saying no, and we'll help you, and no. And instead of letting them see this beautiful gift. And one of the struggles I know as a sidewalk advocate too, and trying to reach out to these women in these crisis pregnancies, time is of the essence. And, and I understand, like, there's not a lot of time to think it through. And you're also really emotional and hormonal. And we know, like, no matter how you have children, like, it's a big responsibility and your whole life changes. And you have, you need to be as ready as you can for that. So it's kind of an easy out,
Except it's not.
Right.
Because the roots are still pulled out.
Right.
And there's still a hole.
Right.
And it can't be filled with pictures. And both of my children, to this day now, they have met their, my daughter has met both her birth parents, and my son has met his birth mom and his birth siblings. And and they have a relationship. And so that whole, it's a different relationship, but they're still parents in a way, and as we are parents in our way. But when you pull out with abortion, how do you ever fill that hole? That must be such a deep pain. I just feel so for them. I just feel so bad for them.
Well, it's a pain that can't be, there's no rectification there. It can't, of course, through Jesus and God, there can be healing, but that is, it can't be filled. It can't ever be, undone. And that's one of the things that we know when we try to talk to the women in those situations. Like, it's pivotal. It's a pivotal day. And it's a day where you're either going to live with a regret at some point. You just will. Even if the world says no, and you tell yourself that, it will haunt you because it's a reality. Because
that hole is there.
Yeah.
There was a child, and that child changes you. Yeah.
I want to know, Shawn, and this is kind of a deeper, but you're an introspective person, but tell me some of the ways that God informed you, taught you, changed you through all of this. Some of the high points of the lessons, or even just how you came to be able to see him as a loving father to you. It's kind of how we talked about earlier, but like maybe a little bit more of that.
Well, looking back now, I'm thinking, well, your plan was a lot better than mine, God, and I can really say with all sincerity is like, fertility has been a gift. Infertility has been a really big gift to me.
Explain that.
Well, because if I would have been fertile and we would have had different children, we wouldn't have our children.
And it's inconceivable.
It's inconceivable not having them. I would not change them. It was pure gift. I can't, and I never wouldn't be James and Oliver.
It's hard to get that across, but, there's different times where my kids have gone through really, really dark times. And I'm just thinking of one who just hasn't at times felt lovable and has kind of said, well, of course you have to love me. But that child doesn't understand.
You do love them.
like there would be a hole if you were in our lives. And here's the word that I just absolutely love this word. It is a word that's come to mean so much to me in lots of different contexts, but the word irreplaceable. And I think that's what you're saying.
It is.
We are each irreplaceable. You can't replace any of us. So if my child were to leave this world, prematurely because it seemed too hard or whatever, wow. I can't get, you can replace anything, but you cannot replace a human soul.
And I don't know what it's like to have a child. I never gave birth to a child. But I do know what it was like when those children were placed in my arms. It's kind of hard to describe, but it was like it kind of sounds like what parents say they feel at birth. I remember when he first walked into the chapel and there was this baby being passed around, and I said, "Oh, thinking that's a lovely child." But when she was placed in my arms, everything just changed. It just the wall was down, and realizing this little weight in my arms is my responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I will do everything I can to keep her safe. I will do anything I can to keep her safe. I mean, and her beauty just exploded. She was lovely before, and then she became the most beautiful. And I don't know. It sounds like when parents describe having a child, that's what they go through. So I don't know.
I have this thought that I'm always in my 5 pregnancies that I had all the way to the end, I was just so exhausted that I felt like I can't even, and there's a little part of envy. And I know it's just this flash of envy that, wow, that would be, well, even thinking about my husband going through it, like his experience of that, me birthing our children is so different from mine, because I'm like in some kind of crazy, different world, just trying to get through it. And I always thought that would be kind of nice to be the dad, like watching it. And in a way, you get to experience that in this other way where I'm just like in awe of it. Like I can't even fathom what that was like.
I don't even know where that came from. I had no idea that I would feel like that. We had car seats all set up we had her car seat set up in the back seat, and the grandmas were riding in the back seat. And I go, and thinking, the babies she's going to be sitting by the grandmas on the way back. And well, that wasn't happening. Yeah. I just had to be right beside her. I had to be right near her. And I just,
this demonstrates how one life changes the world, and you can't even prepare for it or explain it or anything. It reminds me of Jennifer Fulwiller's story of going from atheism to becoming a Christian. And it was the moment she held her baby and she realized this isn't a bunch of chemical reactions right now that I'm feeling. You can't explain it. It goes to the heart, and it defies reason, really, it's a gift, and each of us is that gift. And I think those of us that know that just want people to know that too, but you can't make people know that. It's got to be something they experience, and they've got to be touched by God in some way. What would you say, Shawn, as we're starting to wrap up here, where is God in the cross of infertility, would you say? I mean, you've really spoken well to that and given us, I think, a whole new thought process about what this can be and how beautiful it can be. And of course, you had a strong marriage and a husband that was there all the way too. We haven't talked a lot about Mike, journeying with, but I'm assuming he was pretty stalwart all the way through, and that his heart opened up to these beautiful babies as well. He's an educator, so he's an educator,
and he had Joseph that first summer right after we got him. So they have a really close bond, which is amazing. Can I just tell a story about? It's kind of how it answers the question.
Sure.
My mom lives at this senior living apartments, and about once a week they have a musician come in to play, and my mom has a favorite, and so I went there when he was performing one day, and you hear all these murmurings all around the room, all this murmuring about this little guy that was going to be coming. He was going to be coming, and he was so amazing, and the man came up and he started singing with them and had music so they could sing along, and people were dancing with them, and everyone's having a great time. And then in walks this little guy. He's waving like he's a rock star. He is so excited. He's running in, and his mom is tailing behind with his set of drums, and he sits down next to his dad and his organ, and he's playing his drums. And he's so on beat, and he's such a character. And everybody there is just eating it up. They just love him so much, and he just makes their day. But this little boy was adopted also. He was given the gift of music from his birth family, and this adoptive family really fertilized that gift and really let it grow. And he's just I think he's 8 years old.
Yeah.
I think, and he's not very old. And he's developmentally delayed. So, I mean, the world might not think that this is awesome or great or a person that should be nurtured to grow. But what would the world be like without him?
It's interesting because I know this little boy, and you told me, in advance that you wanted to share about him and his incredible story. And I've been privileged to walk very closely with this family, even more so in the last couple of years with a group that we're both involved in. But recently we had a 40 Days for Life closing, and I hadn't seen this little guy for a while, but been hearing a lot about him. And he got up into this back of this pickup truck with his dad, doing some music for a little ceremony that we were having. And I hadn't seen him for a while, but he said, "Roxanne's here." And he remembered me. And I was like, how does he remember me? But we used to be in a music group together, and he was amazing. And he, like a person that was kind of leading the whole thing, said, "I am so distracted by his joy."
That's it. It's his joy. And he's a rock star. And he's 8 years old.
He is adorable.
And if he was gone, there'd be such a big hole in this world.
He made the whole thing. I cannot imagine that day recently, just a couple days ago, without him. He captured everyone's heart. And it just brought joy to the point that we've had these ceremonies before, and it was the best one because of him.
Because of him.
Yeah.
And every child, every child within the womb, every child, God made for a purpose. This isn't some big mistake.
Yeah.
Many people have the support that they can say, okay, this isn't really the best pregnancy in the world, but I have this other support system, and I can do this. It'll be tough, but we can do this. But the gift of infertility is there's some people that, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. Like those two women, my daughter's birth mom and the woman who was singing the song. There are people, there are so many people that are longing for a child, that were longing to be great parents. And they'll be that soil for that child. They'll be in with God's will. I think about that little guy, having his parents be musicians too. I mean, wow, God really set that one up right, didn't he?
Yes.
And I know with our kids too, it's just they were the children we were always meant to have.
They're the only ones I know that you had. So
they're the ones I always been. And then our grandsons, my grandson is 11 years old, and one of them got the lead in Aladdin. He's Aladdin in their musical. He's just, and they're just what come out of their mouth. They're such good kids, and they would not have existed if my daughter's birth mom would have made a different choice in the world.
Shawn, we've had a lot of talks and walks, and so what is striking me right now is in the years that I've known you, I have not known you as anything other than the mother of these children and the grandmother of these grandchildren, and just knowing how you process things and how you're able to see God's touch in your life is such a gift. And of course, He touched you first. But what would you say as we close to, I guess said this earlier, but if there's anyone out there, is there anything you can say other than what you've already said, which is your story, your living story, a witness to someone who might be considering that other option and closing that door?
You have a beautiful gift inside of you from God. And this child was made for a purpose. And we might not know it right away, but it's a great purpose. And if that child is taken away, there's going to be a big hole in the world. It affects so many people. And, if it's something that you can't do, if you can't raise this child, know that there's so many people who would love to be able to take that on, who are ready to, who really want to be parents. And you will have the choice. If you can choose if you want. You can look at all these profiles. You can meet them. You can go see their home. You can visit them after the child is born. You can, there's so many great options now. And please know that there's so many people who will love your child as much as you do.
Thank you, Shawn. It's been beautiful having you here. Thank you for sharing from your heart.
Thanks, Roxanne, for inviting me.
Where is God in the cross of infertility? My conversation with Shawn was one that to me seemed more like a coffee date than a podcast interview. And as I listened back to it, it seemed even more so that we were inviting listeners into a very private conversation, more than a formal discussion. The fact that we have an ongoing weekly walking date during which time we discuss everything under the sun probably has something to do with the familiarity that comes through in our banter. Shawn was hesitant about doing this podcast. It's just not my thing, she shared. At the same time, I knew she had beautiful insights that deserved air. She'd shared some of them with me, and I was convinced that within her suffering and walk with God, there were some jewels shining that needed to be unearthed. That's one of the reasons I have been so drawn to this medium and format. So many of the soul stories we carry deeply in our hearts don't ever have a chance to be brought into the light. Not all are made to be public, but I think when God touches the soul and changes us from the inside out, there's a calling to not keep it to ourselves. In Matthew 5:14-16, we read, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a mountain cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and then put it under a bushel basket. It is set on a lampstand where it gives light to all in the house. Just so, your light must shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your heavenly Father." Shawn has been carrying a light around, a light of someone who has met suffering and discovered in uttering her pain aloud that Jesus had already freed her to walk forward in hope. I loved this image she left us with, that our good God is saying, yes, this is tough. Catch your breath. Process it a bit. And then when you're ready, come follow me. I'm going to be up the road a ways getting started on the good work we're going to do together. So I'll be waiting for you to catch up. And when you're ready, we'll pursue together this plan of love. I've had my own times of discouragement, seasons even when it seemed God had stopped caring. But it wasn't true. As Shawn said, he just had a better plan. Do we trust that God is God and we are not? Do we trust that he cares for us and wants us to live in freedom and abundance? What steps can we take today to free ourselves from the chains that bind us? The lies of the evil one keep us stuck while the party's going on up ahead. This interview, appropriately as Shawn and I see it, unfolded during one of the church's most significant times, Holy Week. We walked through the valley of Shawn's life only to discover something beautiful. 2 new souls, and from there, 2 new bonus souls, all of whom have made this world more beautiful than it was before. And now we're here in the Easter season, still soaking in the hope that Jesus has a better plan for our crosses, a plan that brought him ultimately to the cross, yes, but also beyond it. Let us not waste a minute more, but set our sights on that place beyond the bend, the place that we can glimpse and even hold for a moment or two right here, right now, with heaven in our heart. If you've walked the road of infertility or know someone who has, I hope you'll share this episode with them and let them know that their life has not come to a dead end, and the road ahead is not filled with brambles and thorns, but a loving Father who wants your good and will lead you to it if you trust in him. In the meantime, we're praying for you. Please pray for us. Well, in a couple of weeks, we'll ask, can I talk to Jesus in the grocery line? Until then, don't lose sight of the light.